So with Christmas around the corner, I decided to talk about one of my favorite cameras, which is the Fujifilm X-T3. So this camera came out about 2 years ago, and I'm going to talk about whether it's still worth buying today. Is it worth buying over the newer X-T4? And will it still be useful in the upcoming year, 2021? So before we get any further, let's talk about the prices of these cameras. So the Fujifilm X-T3 new at the moment is about £900, and the newer Fujifilm X-T4 is about £1,600. So there is a major price difference between the two cameras, and I'm going to discuss whether it's worth paying the extra 700 odd pound for the X-T4 over the X-T3. So I picked up the X-T3 a little over a year ago when I needed to do some video work for a client. So I only had the X Pro 2 at the time, and I decided to pick up the X-T3, and it's become the camera I use for almost all of my professional work. So product photography, for portrait stuff, for any video related work, I use the X-T3. I also use the X-T3 to film all of these YouTube episodes, which is the reason it's not in my hand at the moment. But let me talk about some of the things I like about the X-T3. And first off, I'm going to talk about the autofocusing. So when you compare it to the X Pro 2, the autofocusing on the X-T3 is a major step up. So when I do street photography, I almost always use autofocusing, and there is a noticeable difference between using the X Pro 2 and using the X-T3. And the same goes for autofocusing while recording video. The X-T3 locks on the faces and eyes really well. Furthermore, Fujifilm recently released an update for the X-T3 where it further improved the autofocusing capabilities. So autofocusing is a major positive when it comes to the X-T3. Next up, it's the X-T3's 26 megapixel sensor and the image quality when it comes to video and photography. So the sensor isn't actually that different compared to the X-T4 sensor, and especially when it comes to photography, there's very little difference between the photos taken on an X-T3 and photos taken on an X-T4. Also, and this goes for all Fujifilm X series cameras, the colors which come out of Fujifilm cameras are, in my opinion, the best among all mirrorless cameras. I mean, I think only Leica probably have better colors, and even then it's close. As for video, the Fujifilm X-T3 records in 10-bit. It has good dynamic range. You can film in 4K. You got 120 slow-mo. And to be honest, it still beats most of the mirrorless cameras which came out in 2020 when it comes to video. Another couple features I really like about the X-T3. First up, it's weather resistant. And those of you who are following this channel will know that I love taking photos in the rain. And as you probably know, here in London, it likes to rain a lot. So having a camera which is weather resistant does make a big difference. And it just gives you that peace of mind that when you go out and if it starts raining, you don't have to cover up your camera, or you don't have to worry about the lens or the camera getting damaged by a bit of rainfall. Also, there's 2 memory card slots, and this comes in really handy when doing professional work, because if you do a shoot and you normally only get a couple of days to capture a product, or if you're doing a portrait shoot, you only have that day to capture those photos. Now, if you have a problem with one of your memory cards on the day, or you get back home and you see that one of the memory cards has been corrupted or something went wrong, having that backup memory card can make all of the difference. And in my personal case, there was one shoot where I was taking photos of some trainers. One of the memory cards didn't work on the day, but fortunately I set the camera up so it duplicated the image across 2 memory cards, so I had the backup. So when it comes to doing professional work and things like that, you don't want to take any chances. So having the option of having 2 memory cards and have your camera automatically back up your photos while you take them can help avert a total disaster. And finally, it's the dials and the way the camera works. So as you guys know, when it comes to Fujifilm cameras, you have dials at the top. You can change the aperture from the lens. And what it means is you don't have to go into menu screens to change settings, and you can pretty much change all the settings you need just by turning the dials, and you'd never have to look at the screen or go through menus to change settings, which for me allows me to focus on the photos I'm taking and not on the screen of the camera. So that's some of the things I like about the Fujifilm X-T3. But let's get back to the question for this episode, which is, should you get the X-T3 for 2021? And should you get the X-T3 over the newer X-T4? And before I answer that question, I'm going to briefly just talk about some of the advantages the X-T4 has over the X-T3. First of all, the X-T4 has inbuilt body stabilization, and that comes in really handy while you're taking video. So when it comes to panning shots or just handheld recording, having IBIS does make a big difference. And when you compare that to the X-T3, which has no inbuilt stabilization, there is a drastic difference between recording handheld footage on an X-T4 and recording handheld footage on an X-T3. Finally, the X-T4 has a proper flip out screen, which I'd probably find really useful because when I'm filming these YouTube episodes at the moment, I can't see myself on any screen whatsoever. With the X-T4, you can flip the screen right out so you can see yourself while filming like this, or if you're vlogging, that can come in really handy as well. So that's just a couple of advantages the X-T4 has over the X-T3. So let's get back to the question of this episode and whether you should get that X-T3 or the newer X-T4. In my opinion, there isn't a major difference between the two cameras, but there is a major price difference. So as I said earlier, the X-T3 is about £900, the X-T4 is about £1,600. And what I'd recommend you do is pick up the X-T3 and use that £700 to pick up a new lens. Because despite the X-T3 coming out a little over 2 years ago, it's still better than most mirrorless cameras which came out in 2020. And I still use it for all of my professional work. Just this year alone, I've used the X-T3 for a Fujifilm shoot, Xbox shoot, Columbia shoot. And to be honest, I don't really have any plans on upgrading it in the near future. That said, if you are big into video, the X-T4's IBIS, the X-T4's flip out screen and the bigger battery will come in useful. But as I said earlier, none of these features are so great that I'd spend an extra £700. Furthermore, if you want better stabilization, you can pick up a gimbal and put your Fujifilm on that instead. But that's my thoughts on the X-T3 and whether you should get it this year and whether it's still relevant for 2021. But if you have the X-T3 or you're thinking of getting an X-T3, just drop your questions or your comments down below. I'll make sure to get back to you. A massive thanks for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, remember to hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button too. A massive thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.